So let's talk about Bootstrap now. And so we're going to go through this and just kind of go through the highlights. There are a lot of aspects of Bootstrap that are probably too advanced, even for the intermediate class. It really requires a probably in-depth knowledge of CSS that you might not have to get full power out of it, like customizations and stuff. But even without customizations and whatnot, it's still a pretty darn useful library. So let's get to it. This is the main website. Like I mentioned before, this was built by Twitter as an open source project. Bootstrap was, and that was many years ago. I learned Bootstrap back in 2015 when I first started learning software development. So, and it was around before that. I think since Twitter was built or close after that. And they've supported it ever since, and it's gotten better ever since. So we're currently on Bootstrap 5. So if you ever go look for resources on the internet, just know that there are different versions. It was at Bootstrap 3 for the longest, I think, when I was learning to code. And 4 rewrote the thing, and 5 is now an iteration. So let's get into it. So first off, all you want to do is read the docs. There's a nice big button there for you. And this will quickly just show you how to get a quick start. So get started by including Bootstrap's production-ready CSS and JavaScript via CDN. So Bootstrap is a JavaScript and a CSS library, mostly CSS, and you can actually use the CSS components without using JavaScript, but I want to show both. And so here's an HTML file. Note that it says what to include. So we'll go ahead and just copy this into the CSS file or the HTML file I have here, and include Bootstrap CSS and JS. Place the link tag in the head and the script tag before the closing body tag. So here's the link tag. This is the CDN for their CSS. We'll just copy and paste that here. And we'll go ahead and grab this script tag and put it right here below the body. Actually, let's, I'm gonna comment them out just real quick, just so you can kind of see something. Oh, whoops, not settings. So let's comment that out. And let's just run this page on its own first. So there's hello world. And let's put them back and let's refresh the page. So hopefully you'll notice, but immediately on load, you'll see that, hey, this text is different. So Bootstrap takes the default CSS standards and kind of overwrites them. Not CSS standards, but CSS rules that the browser gives you, and overwrites them using its own. And so just by using the CDN for the CSS out of the box, you get some predefined styles, just like you do with browsers, but this one is cross-browser compatible. It says here you can also include Popper and ArcGIS separately if you don't plan on using popovers. So this is saying, hey, this is all inclusive. This is separate if you want to maintain them separately. So we're just going to keep it all together. And that's, enough to get started. So I'm going to talk about just some of the highlights of the different components and whatnot. So that's where I think we're going to first want to get started. Let's look at the components. So on the left here, you can see pretty much everything they've got. So we're going to touch on the layout. We won't touch on customization. Maybe we can touch a little bit on content forms. But I think mainly we'll look at the components and the layout, because those are the most important features. I definitely encourage you to look at the others, and probably in my assignment I'll have you, implement a form or whatnot. But for now, we'll just have a nice simple talk about the components. So it defaulted to the buttons page, but you can look here that they've got pretty much a lot of different things. So I'm going to go ahead and just start copying things into my HTML. So we'll just put a div here and shove all these buttons on the page. So it gives you these to copy and paste, and for good reason, because they're showing you the code that's going to render these buttons. And if I go ahead and refresh this page, you will see those buttons being put on the page. And you notice that they look pretty nice, that I get little rounded corners, not like the default buttons. And the way that Bootstrap does all this is that it hooks into some classes. So you'll notice as we go through the components that there's some classes. So button primary, button secondary, and that's the main power of Bootstrap, is by hooking into these classes. So by just changing the class of a button, you can get a particular look and feel. So the primary one's this blue, secondary is this gray, success is green, danger is red, warning yellow, so on and so forth. And all these can actually, like I said, there's a bit of customization that you can do. I'm not going to go into that. This is just showing you, hey, this is what's out of the box, but you could customize that. Let's go into a few more components. So we've got, let's do something interesting. Every website has a nav bar at the top of their site. So we're going to go ahead and just grab this nav component, and we're going to put it right here at the very top, save the page. If we refresh, you're going to see this pretty decent looking navigation bar. Nav bar, home, link, drop down, and the drop down has some functionality built into it. Now, if you look at it, it's going to look pretty wild. It's got a lot of tags here, and a lot of them are doing just things like, you can see here, this drop down menu is actually where we see these drop down items appear, action, another action, something else. And really the key to Bootstrap, if you're wanting to customize this heavily, is to look at this and determine what pieces are doing what based off the code and editing them to your heart's content. And there's a lot of documentation that will help you with this. So you can read about the specific classes that are being used throughout this and what they do. You can go in and just start messing with it. Like, let's say, hey, I don't actually want this search bar in the top right here. I'm just going to go ahead and remove that, and it'll be fine. Save that, refresh the page, and it's gone. So we can pick the pieces that we don't want. You might also be wondering, why is yours light and this one's dark? That's because I think, I'm set to dark mode automatically. But if you want to look at it light mode and hurt your eyes, go for it. You can set the theme to be dark, if I'm not mistaken. So if I just kind of scroll here, and actually let's just dark navbar. Dark navbar light has been rewritten, can be themed with CSS variables. So now that's how they set. It used to be that you could set a navbar dark or a navbar light class, but it looks like that's been deprecated in favor of customizing with CSS variables. But let's see if I can do navbar dash dark. No, it didn't like that. So looks like that's something that you gotta customize properly to get like a nice dark mode like this one looks. That's okay though. So if we just go ahead and look at just a couple other different components. Here's a carousel, and we could just drop that maybe right above the buttons. And it doesn't have these images don't work, but I think I can hack that if I do something like just put different images here. Image source equals, let's do this. HTTPS, and my favorite website for quick images, placekitten.com. We'll do / 200 by, or let's do 400 by 400. And then this one I'll just make slightly different so that we get different pictures. Oop, that's big. And look, we got little arrows. And then we get different cats. Excellent. And I didn't have to write a single style. I didn't have to write any CSS to implement this functionality. So definitely I would recommend, if you dig into this for your assignment, playing around with the different components. And if you're not one to feel comfortable with doing custom CSS styles for making your website look good, this is a solid choice in order to kind of get a quick, nice looking website. So I'm going to stop the video here because it's getting a little long. In the next video, we'll go over the grid system, and then we'll basically be ready for your assignment. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.